Hi guys, I'm Jess from Honest Fiction and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the 20 questions book tag. Alright guys, so I just want to give you a heads up. I couldn't find the original creator. I believe they were called Get Read. However, when I went to link the video, it said it was unavailable. Also, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Tuesday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, you can like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram. It is linked down below in the description. With that being said, let's get into this tag. The first question is, how many books is too many books in a book series? I have a very vague answer for this. I feel like it's however many books are needed to complete a story and have it feel complete. Like, I don't want you to have a series that's like supposed to be a trilogy, but then the author just decides to add on more books and it feels like it could have ended with that trilogy. I'm willing to read as many books in a series as long as I am enjoying it, I'm enjoying the characters, and it doesn't feel like it's just being written to be written, if that makes sense. I feel like sometimes authors will enjoy staying in a world so much that they just add more and more, and that series should be complete. But honestly, it really doesn't matter. I'll read 3, I'll read 7. I'm about to tackle, or start to tackle, The Mortal Instruments, and I feel like that is a ton. I read Game of Thrones, that was a decent amount. I want to start The Wheel of Time. That one, I'm scared. I'm intimidated to start that. That is a lot of books, but overall, I think that however many books are needed to complete the story is completely fine. The next question is, how do you feel about cliffhangers? I am probably going to be in the minority here. I love cliffhanger endings. I think they're so good, and they help me complete series. So if I read a book and it doesn't have a cliffhanger ending, sometimes I'm a little bit slower to pick up the sequel. However, if it has an amazing cliffhanger ending and I need to know what happens, I'm gonna pick up the next book. So I really like cliffhangers. The next question is, hardback or paperback? This is a tough one because I think it honestly depends on the season, which sounds so bizarre, but I read hardbacks primarily in the winter and the fall. In the spring, I read more paperbacks, mostly because I go out in the pool. Our family has a house on the lake that we visit in the last few weeks of summer, and I like to read books on the lake, and I don't want to damage one of my hardbacks. I normally bring a paperback. Also, sometimes it even depends on the genre. I feel like I buy more, or it even comes in. Fantasy normally comes more in hardback, I feel like, whereas contemporary romance, I really only see those as paperbacks. So I like both. I really don't have a preference. Yeah, I like both paperback and hardback. And I also like Audible versions or audio versions and my Kindle. So I like all formats of books. The next question is favorite book, and I don't know how anybody answers that question. I could not narrow it down to one book. There are series that I absolutely love, like I've mentioned this many times on my channel. A Court of Thorns and Roses is probably one of my favorite series of all time. Throne of Glass, Game of Thrones, but then there's also classics that I absolutely loved. A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, I reread that every Christmas. It just reminds me of my family. There were books that stood out to me that I didn't think I would love, and then I ended up absolutely adoring them, and House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune is one of those that it's such a good, like, wholesome book that I will reread. And Daisy Jones and the Six, Taylor Jenkins Reid, I think, wrote that, and that one was one that I had no interest in reading, and it's probably one of my favorite books of all time. So I have a lot of favorite books. I don't think I could ever pick just one book in particular. Least favorite book. There's a few. I try to forget the books that I really don't enjoy. Recently, Den of Vipers, I think, is one that I hated. Flames of Chaos was pretty terrible. I've talked about Girls of Paper and Fire. Didn't really enjoy that, but I don't think I hated that one nearly as much as the other two I just mentioned. There's plenty of books out there that I didn't enjoy, but my personal opinion, reading is subjective. You guys might love them, so just because I hate them, you might like it. It's hard to pick a least favorite book. It's just as hard to pick a least favorite book as it is to pick a favorite book. Love triangles, yes or no? Yes, if they are done well. You can do, I feel like, okay, so there are a lot of love triangle books, but it seems that there's always a favorite relationship in the love triangle, and it's normally like the dark-haired bad boy versus like the really wholesome, nice character, and it's almost always that you want that like dark-haired bad boy and the main girl to like fall in love. I feel like that's always the case. There are some that I feel like are executed a lot better than others. Legendborn has that exact trope I just mentioned with like the good boy and the bad boy. However, I feel like it was done very well, and I actually really liked that love triangle. This is gonna be, I don't even know how serious this love triangle is gonna be, but I could see it working, and that is Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Manansala, which I've talked about in a few videos. I think there's gonna be a love triangle in that, and if that's the case, I'm actually gonna be torn because I love both love interests in that. They're both very cute characters. So if a love triangle is done well, I really do enjoy it. It's one of my favorite tropes. The most recent book you couldn't finish, and that is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. I talked about this in my May wrap-up. I did not like either of the main characters, and I also didn't love the office romance setting. Just not something I'm into, and yeah, I just wasn't crazy about that book in general. A book you're currently reading. Currently, I am reading 2 books. I am listening to Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson and am very much enjoying it. And I'm physically reading The Mortal Instruments by Cassandra Clare. I don't know how I feel about it yet, but I'm only like 10 pages in. So those are the 2 books I am currently reading. Next question is the last book you recommended to someone, and that was House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I actually drove to my cousin's house and I put it in her mailbox, and I believe she still hasn't read it, and it's been almost a month. So Haley, if you're watching this, you need to read it. You'll love it. I know you don't think you're gonna love it, but it's so good. So yeah, that is the last book I recommended. The oldest book you have read by publication date, so I believe that's the Iliad and the Odyssey. They were both required reading in my high school, and it's really funny because I remember being in high school and I hated the Iliad, but I loved the Odyssey. But then I reread them in college and it completely flipped. I loved the Iliad and I wasn't crazy about the Odyssey. So it's really funny how your tastes kind of change as you get older. The newest book you read, and I think the newest book I read is The Prison Healer by Lynette Nani. I do have an ARC, but I actually haven't finished reading it, so I don't think that counts. And The Prison Healer is amazing. I talk about it in my May wrap-up that I will leave linked in the cards in the description, but it's great. And it just follows this girl who's trapped in prison, and there's a bunch of magical elements, and there's elemental trials, and it's really, really good. So I recommend everyone read it. But yeah, that was probably the newest book that I've read. Favorite author, and this is going to make me sound so basic, and I apologize in advance for everyone that gets super upset about this because yes, there are other amazing writers out there. Personally, I love Sarah J. Maas. I will read anything that woman puts on paper. I love her writing style, and yes, it's not the most like eloquent, and there are better writers out there. I just get so hooked to her stories. Also, I mentioned this book earlier, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn is one of my top books of all time. Like I said, I reread it every year. So Betty Smith holds a special place in my heart. I actually have a few quotes tattooed on my body from that book. That's how much I love that book and I love that author. And Jennifer L. Armentrout is probably slowly moving her way up. I will read pretty much anything she puts out as well. I just really love her stories. And finally, Frederick Bachman is a new author that I've discovered, and I haven't not liked any book I've read by him. Like literally every single book I've read by him, it just gets better and better. His characters are just, they're written so well. So I don't think I'll ever read a Frederick Bachman book and not enjoy it. So yeah, those are probably like my top 4 favorite authors. All right, the next question is buying books or borrowing books, and unfortunately I prefer buying books, and I know that's really not good as far as like consumerism, and like people don't need to buy the amount of books. I do read all of the books I buy, so there's that. Mostly the only reason I do this is because I dog-ear pages. I have dog-eared pages since childhood. It is an automatic habit. It's like muscle memory at this point. Like as soon as I stop, I dog-ear. And I don't want to borrow any of my friends' books and do that. I borrowed books before and I just had so much anxiety while reading that I was like, I can't dog ear. Like you gotta remember not to do that. So I prefer to buy. I try to buy from thrift books or thrift stores. There's a couple of thrift stores in Princeton that sell used books that I think I'm gonna do a reading vlog of because they're very cute, and I try to get like secondhand books. However, I do prefer buying books than borrowing books. A book you dislike that everyone else seems to love. I have 2 for this. So I have Circe. I will leave the author because I forget their name on the screen. I thought that book was boring. I just couldn't get into it. And I finished it. There wasn't anything I loved about that book. And I really had very high expectations just because the way everyone talks about that book. And the other one is the Folk and Air series. I've talked about this on my channel, so I'm not going to go into detail. I just didn't love that series, and I feel like people worship that series and they just think it's so good. I hated the romance between Cardan and the main character. I just didn't get it. I felt like the first book was okay. Second book was all right. I was okay with the second book. I really liked the fairy trickster element. Then the third book I despised. So it is not one of my favorite series. I have no interest in rereading it, and I feel like people love it. I already answered this question, but bookmarks or dog ear? I always dog ear my books. Like I said, I know it's terrible. I know people hate it. I can't help it. It's automatic. I have tried getting magnetic bookmarks. I do try to use those when I can, especially if I'm going to be letting someone else borrow the book in the future. However, I dog ear. I'm sorry. A book you can always reread, and I answered this one already as well, and that is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. I reread this book every year. It just reminds me of my family. I have a lot of very strong women in my family, and that is what this book is about, and it's so good. So that is one that I can reread every single year. Anything by Sarah J. Maas, I can probably reread. I think I've reread the ACOTAR series at least 3 times, and I already want to reread it again. I also really want to reread Throne of Glass, just because when I read it, I feel like I read it right after I finished A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I kept comparing the two, and I kind of want to read it on its own and just really give it all the attention it deserves. So anything by Sarah J. Maas, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, I think that's it. All right, next up is can you read while listening to music? And that is a no. If there are any lyrics in a song, I will get completely messed up if I am trying to read. However, I do really enjoy ambiance on my TV while I'm reading. I actually prefer that way. I really don't like it to be completely quiet when I'm reading. It just creeps me out. But there is bookstore ambiance, or there's even different courts, like summer court, autumn court. There's fantasy ambiance. There's pretty much any ambiance you could want that you can find on YouTube. So I will always play those while I'm reading. It's just very relaxing. One POV or multiple POV? So I really enjoy one point of view. I think that it just flows a little bit better for me, so I prefer that. However, I do enjoy a lot of books that are multiple point of view. I just feel like with multiple point of view, there's always one character that I hate reading. I just don't want to be in their head, and I have to trudge through this character in order to get to the other characters that I prefer reading about. Every time. I don't think there's ever been a book that I liked every single character and every single point of view. So overall, probably one, but I can do multiple. It really depends on the story. Do you read a book in one sitting or over multiple days? So it really depends on the book. I feel like that's the answer to all of these questions. If it is a short contemporary romance, that's probably going to get read in one sitting, or I listen to those a lot of the time in audio format. So normally while I'm working, I have 2 jobs. One job I can do at home while I'm typing. I'll just play that in the background, and I'll do that in one sitting. However, if it is an epic fantasy or an adult novel or something that's a little bit longer, obviously that's going to take me longer to read. I probably won't do that in one sitting. Also, there's some fantasy worlds that I feel like you really have to pay attention, and I like to highlight and stuff like that. So I won't be reading those in one sitting. So it really depends on the book. All right, guys, that is it for my tag video. Thank you so much for watching. I tag anyone who wants to do this tag. It was really fun. Let me know in the comments, do you guys dog your pages? What's your favorite book? Could you even pick a favorite book? Because I feel like that's impossible. I said this already, but I will say it again. I post new videos on Tuesday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you guys next week. Bye.